Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Podcasting for Business. Today, we've got a treat, like every other day, but today is a special treat because I have my friend Tina Tao in the house. And Tina's not written one, but two books, and her last book kind of made big waves. And you're going to love it because I love having conversations with her. In fact, this is late because we were talking and we just couldn't stop. So you're going to love this conversation, but also if you want the edited version of this, you'll find it on my podcast. Should I Start a Podcast? You'll find it on all the podcast platforms. We're going to cover a mistake which, oh my God, business owners make all the time, which is publishing large MP3 files on their podcast. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to give you a tactic that's going to make your marketing a lot easier in your content creation. And we're going to talk about multi-million-dollar businesses with the amazing Tina Tao.
Hello, friend.
Tina, how's it going? So cool to have you on this show.
I know. I'm just like super psyched about this tech. That's what I'm loving. I'm like, it's streaming. Like for everyone listening, this is how clever Ronsley is, right? This is streaming out live to all of his social channels and mine at the same time, then extrapolating the good parts of which he's like, we'll cut like 20, 30 minutes out of it. Honey, it's all good parts. You're going to have to put it all on. But he's doing that and then putting it on the podcast, chopping it into reels. Like, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's done.
Thank you. You know, usually I'm the one edifying the guest, but thank you, Tina. This is really cool. I love our conversations because they're just so happy, right? I mean, you're just such a happy. You're such a happy energy. How let's talk about business, right? Let's get an update. What's been going on in Tina's world? You've been traveling everywhere. You're killing it in the new business, and let's get an update on what's happening in Tina's world.
Yeah. Do you know, so today is the 4-year anniversary since we left to travel around the world for a year, which I cannot believe. And it's interesting you asked that question today because I've been really like retrospective about that in going, that was one of the most significant changes that we'd ever made in our lives. We kind of threw away everything that we'd known, like literally left our life. We like sold our house, our cars, our furniture, like everything. And we grabbed our bags and we left, and we didn't know who we were going to be when we grow up, what we were going to do next, like what was going to come of this. And everything felt so like, what's going to happen? And now like 4 years later to then have come back, started a brand new life in a brand new place, our kids turning into teenagers, which are like whole new people, and then have this business that we have. Everything with business development, I think while we're in it, feels like it's taking so long. But then you look back and you go, holy guacamole, like this is what a ride. Like
Right.
it's amazing. So officially the business that I run now, Her Empire Builder, which is my main membership, has only been going, we just had our 2 years in June. So it's amazing to me the growth of that. But then I also know that the growth of that has come because of the previous 14 years of business that happened before that.
Yeah.
So I know sometimes people will look at me and go, wow, like you got real successful real quick, but there was a very, very solid foundation under that first. And funny, you mentioned travel, like we started travel again this year. And I'll be honest, Ronsley, I know you've just got back from a big trip too. I got carried away. Like I got too excited. So this year, I mean, we were allowed to leave the island at Christmas time. So I left the island. We went to Fiji for a couple of weeks. We came back. I left in March. I left for 5.5 weeks, went to like LA, Palm Springs, Miami, Costa Rica, Mexico. Like I was one excited woman to be let out again, and then came back for a month and then went to America again for a month. And now we're about to go again for 5 weeks. And then I've just booked in Kenya later this year. Like it's just, I've gotten carried away and I need to pull the handbrake.
Do you feel that you have to pull the handbrake? Because I feel like, I mean, I feel similar in the sense that as soon as we were allowed out, like
Yeah.
literally the next few days, we're planning to leave, and we left. We went to see my parents and Rochelle's parents in
Yeah.
Goa. That we were meant to be there for 30 days. We stayed there for 4 months. Came back, and I just came back again, and I'm
Mm.
kind of wondering, when you say pull back on the reins, why is that? Do you feel like you're out of your routine and that's annoying you, or like what's annoying you?
Yeah. It's such a good question, and it's like my daily grapple that I grapple with in going. So the debate, always when I talk to you, like the conversation goes in an area that I wasn't anticipating talking about that. But okay, thanks, Jonsley. Because this is, you have a way of asking a question of like, this is exactly what I'm grappling with at the moment. And it's not like the bright and shiny thing that it looks like from the outside. So when, like the situation that I'm in now, the whole thing this year has been going, how big do we go? Like, how much is enough? And I know that every time I say yes to something, I'm unconsciously saying no to something else. So I want to be aware of what that trade off is, because I think it's really unrealistic to think that it's not all upside. When we say yes, there's also the down. And last year, my son Cohen had quite a major accident. And that's really what made us this year go, well, you know what? Let's not set the world on fire. Like, let's just enjoy life, enjoy what we've built, done that. But I have a tendency to get overexcited. Don't know if you noticed that, Ronsley. And I have so many great opportunities and so many different things that I can do and that I want to do. And so, like, I move really fast, I do those things. But then, of course, the business grows, which is awesome, but then we need to grow all the infrastructure and the team and everything like that. So the hardest part of this year has been growing the team to be able to support the growth, because customer service is obviously the most important thing and our customers getting a result, and that doesn't happen without all of the cogs turning in the background. But then team can't be successful unless I'm available to train them and give them that time and do all of that. So I would love to just be flitting around the world. I love not having routine. I love just bouncing around doing the marketing. Like, there's so much of my business that I do love, but there's so much admin and back end elements that I do not love, that I have team to do, but they need me. And we're adding two more team members at the moment, which means more training. And I kind of look at that and go, should I just put the handbrake on and not grow the business so that I can just have 6 months to just travel and not have to train and not have to have the responsibility of looking after other people and all of that sort of thing? But the answer is no, I'm always going to grow. And so I just have to kind of balance that in a way that is fair to everybody.
Your what you're dealing with is like what we always deal with in business that we kind of don't talk about, because it's
Yeah.
uh, the the issue of growth. It's like when you're a solopreneur or you're just starting out and you have this idea, you're kind of going, well, I wish I had people to buy this idea. And then you start getting clients in and people buy the idea, and you go, I wish I'm not the person delivering this all the time. And then you get someone to help you, and then you're kind of going, well, I wish I can manage this better. And then you start managing the team, and then you said, I wish these operationals were all on point and all happening together. And then you start working on the operations, and then you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, I've got to work on culture because this team is getting bigger, and the culture is
Yeah.
something we've got to focus on. And you know what? It is the journey that we've picked. It is the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey of putting ourselves in these positions. And this is the thing that
Mm.
I tell myself. I mean, I'm kind of like in a similar position where I'm can literally do whatever I want, and it's a bit weird. I feel like a kid with money. It's
Yeah.
weird. And
So fun though.
it is so fun,
Yeah.
and and amazing, and it's about being able to put in context what really happened. So let's get to this. I mean, you've been doing this for a while, and your expertise is like documented really, really well. And you've got a podcast and you do it for your business. Let's talk about that, right? Because I think that you're one of the big proponents of having a podcast for business, and I want to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on how does it set you up, and why did you start doing it in the first place?
Yeah, so I have had my podcast now for on and off for 4 years, just over. But I took a break when I traveled, and we've changed it a few times as well. So my first podcast started out as the Female Advantage, and then when I traveled, I had this whole, eat, pray, love thing going on, and was, you know, was off the the kind of capitalist thing and going, I'm just going to travel and work from my laptop. So we had an intentional life. For a second, it was laptop life. And then when I came back and found my thing, then we changed to Her Empire Builder. And that's the way I think it's going to be for the next 10 years now. Because you try lots of different things in business, and you get that alignment, and you're like, oh, it just like whoosh, switches in, and you're like, this is me for the next chapter kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I love it. I have 150 members in Her Empire Builder at the moment. Our goal is to grow to 1,000 over the next few years. And I tell everybody to have a podcast. Everybody. Because so my stats at the moment sit on, with our last launch, 62% of people that joined our membership found me through my podcast. Like, that's huge. It's
That's
huge.
that's absolutely crazy. I'm first of all super surprised that you have a stat down to 62%. Like, how do you even like, what do you even measure to kind of get to that stat?
Yeah, so I mean, stats are always like, I can say it and I can use it and I can stand by it, but it's still ambiguous. So we ask the question, where did you first see Tina? And then we ask the question, do you regularly watch Instagram stories? Do you listen to the podcast on a weekly basis? Have you heard Tina on another podcast? Like, all of that sort of thing. So we know that where people first found me is generally, majority, the podcast. But sometimes, because if you ask a question in any sort of survey that's, where did you find that person? They'll usually put like the most recent thing.
Correct.
So we try and ask that. But then I'm sure people put the podcast where maybe it was social media, or maybe it was on someone else's podcast, and then they came and listened to my podcast. So it's never going to be exact, but that's what people are telling me, which means that people are valuing the podcast, which is important.
It's huge, because here's the thing about a podcast is people realize that they trust voice because it
Mm.
is just part of our DNA. Parents sing to their kids before they're even born. We've been, sharing these kind of voice stories for like forever. So there's a huge element of trust that's built into someone hearing our voice, as opposed to someone reading an email that we've sent maybe even a few times. So, okay, so you tell people to start a podcast, but what is the advantage? Like, I mean, it sounds great. It sounds great like going to the gym, but there's a lot of work.
I'd rather record a podcast than go to the gym. Isn't that terrible? Um, yeah, you know what? It is a lot of work. I get told a lot that line, actually, when I'm a business strategist. So I teach people all of the different ways to build the business behind online courses. And the thing I hear most often is, everything that you're teaching people to do, that sounds like a lot of work. Yes, it is. Welcome to the game. When people tell you like it'll just build it and they will come. No, nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to knock on the door. You can have the most beautiful program. You can be the smartest person in the room. You can have a gorgeous website. Unless you promote well and get to know your customers and connect with them, you're never going to be successful. And so there's all these people that, are trying to buy into this, the less I work, the more I earn kind of thing, which there is a tipping point. But those people that actually achieve that have already made millions. They've already got their like solidification of their profile. And so it's really important to know, when you're starting out, and even as you're developing and in that growth phase, you have to find as many ways as possible to connect with clients, to form that relationship. And we're limited with how much we can do that. Like, I know when I started, I would get on calls with everybody and chat to them. Now I'm in the beautiful position, there's too many people to get on calls with. And so a podcast is amazing. People can get to know me. They can get to work out, hey, do I want to work with her? Yes or no, because, there's horses for courses and different styles. And some people are going to love me. Some people are going to not. I regularly get told I giggle too much on a podcast and it's really annoying. So those people are not my clients, and that's totally okay. But that's what podcasting does, is it gets to connect with people that you wouldn't otherwise connect with, and they can get to know you. And then you can kind of have those offers out to go, hey, message me on Instagram if you're interested in this, or download my lead magnet if you're interested in this, and kind of take that relationship from the podcast then into the business journey and be able to serve them. And I just love it, as you can probably tell.
No, I mean, of course. I mean, I love it too, and I'm actually trying
Yeah.
extremely hard to be objective about the whole situation.
You're
But
like, yes, Tina, I know.
yes, I know you're speaking. You're talking to the converted. And ladies and gentlemen, if you just heard Tina talk about the giggle, and there's a giggle story about someone reaching out to Tina and about her giggle in her comments of the eye. And if you want to listen to that, you can just Google psychology of entrepreneurship, Tina Tower, and there's a whole episode on that. But let's talk about what you mentioned earlier, because you said that no one's going to come. You put this thing out there, and I feel like for new business owners or business owners getting into the game, and even if you've been in the game for a while, there are these reps that every business owner needs to go through,
Yeah.
or needs to do in general. And a lot of us are avoiding it, or a lot of us don't even know that we're going to do it. What,
Mm.
in your opinion, I mean, you're a strategist, what, in your opinion, are the reps that just need to get done on a weekly, say, monthly basis?
Well, it depends on how ambitious you are and what result you want, really. So there's different things that I think are vital, and it depends on your audience too and where that is. So the first thing is to figure out like where is your audience, and then go there. So people would tell me all the time, like, I want to double my revenue, or I want to double my email list, or whatever it is. It's like, well, what are you doing to go get it? Like, you've actually got to go get it and work out your strategy. So I'm not someone that goes, there's a one size fits all for everybody. My job, I see it as showing everything that's available, and then people can pick and choose what they're comfortable with. Because for me, one of the most highly converting things that I do daily is an Instagram story. I find it really easy. It takes 60 seconds. I don't put much thought into it, but it allows me to connect with my audience every day. And then they can write back and we can have those conversations. So for me, that's a winner chicken dinner sort of a strategy. So easy, so cheap, so great. But for some people, that would cause so much anxiety that it's just not worth it. So it's
Got it.
figuring out what is your natural tendency and what are you going to be comfortable with and what is consistent. So I think the same with a podcast. So how many podcasts, I mean, you probably know the stats on this, but I see generally so many people get excited, start a podcast, get to like 6 to 10 episodes in, and then it disappears. They're like, what? I got to show up every week. Like, I was telling someone the other day, because I think doing what we're doing right now, like going live on social media, is one of the best ways to build your audience. And I did it every week publicly, and now I do it every week privately for my members. And I was telling someone the other day, I have gone live inside my Facebook group for my members for over 400 weeks in a row without missing
Wow.
one. And people were going, like, when you're talking before about delivery, I love delivery. Like, I actually really like that part, but it takes consistency and it takes time. And it's not going to happen overnight. But if you do those things consistently, business is so beautiful but so cruel, in the way of, at the beginning, you are so overworked and underpaid, and you're battling these mentalities and going, is it going to work out? Is it all worth it? Like, am I going to cut through? Is this even going to pay off? Like, all of that sort of, and then you hit that tipping point, and it just, if you've done all of the things consistently up until then, it just goes whoosh, and you just fly, and all these opportunities open, and then you end up like super underworked and overpaid, and you're like, where was all these opportunities when I was struggling so bad? And now you're saying no to everything. I mean, someone last week, and I don't say this to toot my horn, I say this to illustrate the point, is someone asked me for coaching. So when I was doing private coaching, I got to 25,000 for a 12-week period was the rate. And then in the end, I was like, I actually don't have enough energy to do this, and I want to put all my energy into my group program. And so I said no, and I haven't, because I've been saying no, I haven't been asked for a couple of months. And then someone last week asked me again, and it was so, like, I felt so torn in going, I mean, $25,000 was like what I earned for the first 5 years of my business annually, like in the whole business. I'm going, where was that then? Like, I'm just as awesome now as I was then. Like, there's
You
no,
know the difference? I think. Sorry,
yeah.
you were going to say something. Yeah, go
No,
on.
no, go for it. Yeah.
What I was going to say is it's the momentum from the reps.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's what it is. It is like someone doesn't just wake up and run a marathon, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. It's the reps that they've put in to even cross the finish line. That's why it's such a big deal to run that kind of mileage. But also, I think that's the thing in business today is like we all want to get there quicker. We all want the 6 minute abs. And we all kind of going, well, how do we make sure that we do the 6 minutes that gets us the result, right? And
Yeah.
and to your point, like what you're talking about earlier is going live and doing this story to your audience, which some people might not find comfortable, but might be the thing that they need to do to give them the reps to get to a point where business does become easy.
Yeah. And it's simple things like to give you an actual tangible answer so that I can give you something useful. Like on a bare minimum, what we do every week for our business is we post daily on social media. Now that changes. It was obviously static posts, very profound quotes, all the beautiful images from professional photo shoots.
Yeah.
It's now changing into more casual reels is working better, which is both harder and easier. So like a bit of both. But so that changes, but we show up daily, every single day. And then I go live once or twice a week inside of our group. I have a podcast that goes out every Wednesday. I have a newsletter that goes out every Wednesday that I write. We have a blog post that goes out at least once or twice a week. So those things are happening weekly inside our business for marketing always. That's like the bare minimum. And then I'll have campaigns that run. So whether it's like when the book came out, I went on 72 podcasts in 30 days.
Wow.
Like, it was a lot of talking. But the book got to number one in both Australia and the US. And that was because I was on podcasts talking about the book. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. And so when people say, wow, that's a lot of work, hell yeah, it is. But if you want the result, like, if you want to run the marathon, you got to go to the gym and train. I don't want to run the marathon. I'm not going to the gym and training. I do want to have a kick-ass multi-million-dollar business. So I am going to do those daily things that are going to get me there.
Yeah.
So we do that. The book is part of that strategy as well. Like there's so many different things. I speak, I do live events, I do third party media, I do all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a lot that you just highlighted in that short clip because and they're all possible because I think you do the podcast, which allows you to kind of create all this other content around it, and then you also create these relationships with people. Let's talk about the results you've gotten, and when you think about the results you've achieved, obviously bestseller list, amazingly, like holy shit, congratulations. Like not that's the thing, like I feel that when you get it, it doesn't seem as great, but I want to tell you as someone who doesn't have it that it is fucking amazing that you do. Congratulations. It is so cool. Telstra National Young Businesswoman of the Year, Australian Business Champion, all that kind of stuff. When you think about the podcast and the results it's gotten you, what comes to mind that are maybe not even mentioned?
Yeah. So with the podcast, obviously we do it to connect with customers, to add massive value to the world. I believe in the law of reciprocity. So I think when I put good stuff out there, good stuff's going to come back. But one thing that I love that I never anticipated from podcasting is how many doors it has opened for connections with people that I just really want to talk to. Like if I didn't have a podcast and you didn't have a podcast, I don't know if we would ever meet. I don't know if we would be friends in
Yeah.
this universe. But from doing that, then I was able to get you to come and talk to my at my conference. Then you were able to serve customers and you got some business out of it. I got business out of it. And rising tide raises all ships. There are so many cool people that I am now friends with that started by me inviting them onto my podcast. Because the thing is, you can't call someone who's super successful that you're like a fangirl of, going, oh my gosh, I just want to ask this person all the questions, and call them and go, can I just have an hour of your time and just ask all the questions? Like, that's a big no.
Right.
However, if you can have them on your podcast and then promote the shit out of them, like really, and this is the thing I think a lot of people miss, is I see people do the podcast, but not like promote the crap out of the person coming on. Like, if you make them feel so good and really put them everywhere and make it that win-win, they're going to then go, wow, that was a really great experience. Like, how can I help them back to that reciprocity? And yeah, I've gone on retreats with different people. I've had partnerships with different people. People were in my book. I've been in their book, like all different things that have all stemmed out of our relationship starting, of either me being on their podcast or them being on my podcast. Like, it's just a door opener.
It is absolutely insane. Like, I just got back from a trip that I would have never happened if I did not start the podcast. And on the trip, Facebook decides to remind me that it's been 10 years that I've been doing this. And I feel like I just
Wow,
started.
congratulations.
Right. Thank you. I actually feel, I don't know where the time went, but, 10 years, over 1,500 interviews, thousands of businesses that I've started a podcast that I've
That's so
helped.
cool.
And when I kind of stack that up, that's when I kind of go, oh, that's why the momentum is paying off, right? And that's why I don't have to have imposter syndrome, because what is there to be an imposter about? Like, I've done all the reps, right? It's just like, it's really fascinating how that let's talk about
Yeah.
the journey you've been on, right? You just mentioned retreats. You just mentioned your clients coming together, and I've been part of that amazing
Yeah.
group. It's great
I love
energy.
it.
It's so good. Let's start with what is the most challenging part of that. What's the most challenging part of you bringing those people together? And then how has that helped you with content, with
Mhm.
marketing, and with case studies, and how do you use that in the business?
Yeah, good question. Live events. I mean, live events. Is that what you want me to talk about
Yeah,
specifically? Like bringing together live
yeah,
events? Yeah.
yeah.
They are, I think, probably the hardest thing that I do in the business. They are hard because it's kind of like running a wedding, you know, there's so much lead up to it and preparation, and then it's over so quick. And also, it costs a freaking fortune. Like, oh my gosh, the budgets of the retreats that I run, because I value nothing more than connection and experience, and I want people when they go away to go, that was the greatest event I have ever been to. Like, it blew my mind. And the hard part about every time someone has that experience, the bar gets raised again and again. So the expectation from people coming to my events is that it's going to be mind blowing. So I'm like always trying to outdo myself, which means the budget just keeps going up and up. And so that is probably the hardest part, is because I don't make money out of events from the events themselves.
Mm.
And so people may go, well, what's the point in doing them? And they are, I think, one of the most valuable things that we do. So firstly, I love them. I'm an introvert, despite my energy. That, like, I can perform and I love it, but then, like, I can't do it very much. So the majority of my time is spent alone behind my computer, and that is just how I love it, or walking the streets of some strange town all by myself, just wandering in and out, like just getting lost in the world. So I usually go in bursts. And to me, retreats and events are perfect for that, because it's kind of like you can connect really well with people when you're in real life. And I can do that a couple of times a year and then kind of stay in my own little world, which I really, really enjoy. So there's that part, but also we run online business. So we've got the online community, which is so good. And I'm always so, we've got, I think, 8 or 9 different countries that people are from, that
Yeah.
are in our membership so far. And to me, it's so cool that you can have people from all over the globe connecting together. And there's so many things that happen on there, but there's something magical about when someone sits next to somebody at the table and they're like, hi, and you can sparkly bits talk to each other and different things happen. There is always so much business that comes out of it for everybody that comes in because of those rich connections. So that I love, and I love providing that opportunity to have those conversations, because for a lot of entrepreneurial people like us, we're the odd ones in our normal life. Like if I go to my kids' sporting games and talk to a lot of the other mums, like you see people's heads go, what? You want to do what? Like I sometimes forget how strange I am because I don't spend that much time with like
Yeah.
so-called normal people. So when people come together at events, and it's why I like having high-end retreats and why I like getting a lot of my business friends together as frequently as possible, is it gets you, it expands your thinking. It makes you go, oh, here I was thinking like, maybe I need to, like I said at the start, put the handbrake on or play a little bit smaller. Like maybe I'm getting carried away. I go and talk with my business friends and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Like, take off those reins. Let's go. Like we've got one life. Let's go get it.
Yeah.
Like it's so powerful in terms of that energy that comes from it. So I love that. And then from a content point of view, oh, there's nothing like live events to get content, both for our business and the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, we had Palm Springs in March. I'm still using those images and videos and everything now. So from an expense point of view, if I look at like the bottom line of what the retreat costs, we don't make money on that. But then I mean, what's the cost of all of that ongoing marketing and exposure? So if you put that into it, it's definitely worth it. So we have the exposure side, but then also everyone that comes to our events all shares it with their network as well. So it does help very much to be able to grow. Yeah.
And through that, what you were saying was how it was bringing people together, stops or helps you kind of with perspective, right? Like, I think, I wonder how much of ourselves do we dim? We dim our light because we're not really sure how much to shine. Does that come up in your conversations with your clients?
For sure. So, I mean, being Australian, we still have the majority of our clients are in Australia, and it is so different to the American market. I went to a retreat in Costa Rica in April with female course creators that were from the US. I was the only Australian there. And the reason that I did that was because I wanted that injection of energy, and I wanted I wanted that injection of energy, and I wanted that different perspective as well. And there's so much that holds us back. And I know, you're Indian as well. And it's a similar sort of thing there in going, like, you've got that element of guilt if you shine, or of, that you don't want to put other people down by shining too brightly. And that just doesn't seem to exist in the same way in the US. Like it is so supportive of one another, and building it up. And so I try very much to keep the culture of our organization as much to that as possible, in going, if there's no time or space for not shining as brightly as you possibly can, because I mean those people just aren't welcome.
What do you think is the psychology that we need to shift when it comes to that? Because I feel like some of us looking at the Americans might kind of go, there's a bit too much there, and some of us might feel like, I mean, there must be some sort of middle ground. And what is the psychology of that we need to get over to put ourselves out there? Because I think that is probably the biggest difference that it could make in our business, and it is institutionalized into us that, no shining, please don't shine, especially if you're a woman kind of like trying to be out there. It's probably even worse than for a guy to do that, I would assume.
Well, I think most of the battle is internally as well. Like we often think like it's fear of judgment from others and it's other people's feedback, but more often than not, it's actually our own. So I think we need to recognize that and where we're holding ourselves back. And if we really want it too, like I know for some people, bigger isn't always better. Maybe you can lead a really happy, I think the whole purpose of life is contribution, impact, and joy. And so if you're being able to do that, but on a small scale and you're totally satisfied, like don't try and push yourself further because you think that's the right thing to do either. Like everyone's got their own set points, but what really frustrates me is what you're talking about, which is when people hold themselves back that have so much to give to the world. And I think that that is one of the biggest mental battles that we go through as entrepreneurs. Is every time we level up, it's kind of like, okay, new level, new devil. Like, what is this mindset thing here that I'm dealing with? And every time I progress in my business, I have new mindset things that I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that was an issue.
Mm.
Um, and I have to overcome that. And so, like, as an example, when I went and traveled in April, I went for 5 weeks. I
Yeah.
have teenage sons.
Yeah.
I cannot even tell. I mean, I started my business 4 years before my eldest was born. So they've never known any different.
Hmm.
I can't even tell you the number of conversations that I've had from women in going, how do you deal with the guilt? How do you leave your family? How does your husband let you leave your family? Like all of these different things.
Wow.
And when I was traveling, I had at least 10 messages from people actually physically sending me a message saying, I have to unfollow you. One, do you need to share that? Two, do I care? But anyway, I have to unfollow you because it's making me really mad seeing you, the life that you're living. And aren't you a bit of a bitch traveling like that? And all of these different things that I'm like,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
right. A part of me was like, I should screenshot them and just share them for people. But then, because there's a part of it that I don't want other people, it's not made up. People think, well, I can't shine because of different, but it's not made up. You start shining, people will tear you down.
Mm.
Like it's inevitable, and it's
Mm.
happened to me again and again. But now that I'm at the level I am, I can very much recognize that when I get that message of going, how could you possibly be so callous to leave your children for 5 weeks? I can look at that and go, that's not about me. That's about them. They're
Yeah.
feeling insecure about their parenting or thinking that they couldn't do that or any multitude of things that are actually none of my business. So I think in ourselves, we have to recognize like what's important to us, who do we want to be? And like to touch on that as well, I have zero guilt when I go away. My kids are so loved and they know they're so loved and they're very secure and confident in that. And yes, they miss me a lot when I'm gone. And yes, I miss them a lot when I'm gone. But I don't want to choose this or that. I want this and that.
Yeah.
And I can.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's usually because people don't know that there's another way, and they don't want to find out there's another way, and they've been brought up in a certain way, and they kind of only know that is the way to parent, and are not open to anything else. And I suppose that's where that's coming from. And you know what? I love having these conversations with you, you in particular, primarily because I feel like I have these conversations inside my head, and most of my guy friends are like, nah, it's just do the thing, man. And I don't, and maybe there's an element of that, but when I have a conversation with you about it, you're so practical about it. Like when you're kind of going, well, this is what happens, and I'm at a point where it doesn't matter because these are the people that matter, and
Yes.
I am focusing on those people that matter as opposed to wanting to be liked by everyone. And I think that is probably the biggest growth that any business owner can go through, is understanding that you don't need to be liked by everyone.
Yes. And so an example of that, because I'm still like I've been in business now, this is my 18 years, like in a couple of months,
Wow.
like a long time. And I look really confident and I am confident. I'm very confident in my abilities. I don't second guess a lot of what I say. Like I'm pretty sure I've done it for long enough that, you know, even if I know I'm going to like I'm sure for now, I know that in a couple of years my thoughts are going to change, my perspectives are going to change, and that's actually totally okay. But an example of that is I'm still very careful to not offend people. I don't ever want to purposefully alienate people or offend people, or for people to think that, I'm not a nice girl. And so I'm always still very conscious of that. And I've been working on that so much in trying to go, well, when I see things, actually, it's okay for me to call it out. And that doesn't have to mean that I'm nasty. It can just do it from a place of trying to be helpful to people. And I did something a few weeks ago that I have never done before, and I went on full rant on my podcast,
Uh-huh.
like a full rant, like things that I think in my head all the time and say to girlfriends, but would never say publicly, because I'm like, there's people that will agree with that, and there's people that'll be like, whoa,
Mm,
there's a lot going on behind there.
mm.
Anyway, I did it. Unsurprisingly, it's been our most popular podcast episode of the year. Uh, and so that in itself, like you talking about, you know, just doing the thing and being able to not be held back by the opinions of others, it's really easy to say. It's really difficult to do, because I mean, I still want people to like I don't want to make anyone's day worse than
Yeah.
it already has to be. Like life's already hard.
Mm,
But for me, the reason that I went on that rant in the first place was because there was so much stuff going on and different things that I have learnt in going, it's actually not the same for everyone. And it came out of this whole thing of, we see, and this is why I say like our opinions can change, is I used to always be of the ethos, if we can dream it, we can achieve it. And if we work hard enough, we can get it. And all of that sort of thing. And what I have come to understand, the more women that I work with, both through my programs and through our scholarships that we fund in Kenya, is that so many people can have dreams, can have ambitions, can have vision, can have smarts, can have all of that. But the 24 hours in the day is not the same as someone
mm,
else that came from a different part of town or had a different skin color or had a different
mm.
education. So it was just, I was getting really mad about, privileged people
Yeah.
saying, do the thing and it will come, and you can just pay for Facebook ads. Well, some people don't have $20 a day to pay for Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Like it's just, yeah, and I'm starting to get ranty again,
No,
Rosalie.
I love Tina on a rant. I love that because I think some of the truths come out that is being hidden behind this whole social media being so cool because we put out, we put out our highlight. Let's be honest here, right? Well, what you see on social media are our highlight reels. It is not what we're dealing with every day, and I still don't know how necessarily to put out a post. Oh, I just lost a client today, or put out a post that says, you know what, I just got my ass handed to me because I messed up with a customer service sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say that I reached out to this person and they didn't reply back. And
Mm.
like, how do you put that necessarily out there? But those things happen. It's just that maybe we kind of keep doing it despite the disappointment and keep going ahead with it. How have you found that you get over things?
When bad things happen,
Yeah.
I think it's a muscle that
Mm,
probably gets exercised, and it depends on the bad thing. So I think, like, without going too deep into our well, and I know we've talked about this before, but our backgrounds pay, like, they're responsible for so much of what we deal with and how we deal with things. So I try and pay a lot of attention to, um, if I'm overreacting to something, why that
mm,
is, and if that is a real thing, and if it's a real problem or if it's not a real problem. So I know I'm actually really good at handling massive problems, crises, like big problem solving. I'm your gal. Little niggly things, oh my gosh. Like, if my mouse battery runs out, I will throw that fucking thing through the wall. I'm like, "What is this?" Or if there's no glasses or my rubbish didn't get, like, the little things I cannot deal with. Internet dropping out. Oh my gosh, rage
right.
monster. Like, right?
Yeah.
Um, so they're but the big things, okay, so I'll give you a practical example.
Yeah.
Feedback forms.
Yeah.
Oh, feedback forms, Rosalie. So feedback forms we need to have in our business. So I pay a lot of attention to them because I know that the business that I have now is as good as it can be for now because of feedback forms. I get them frequently. I pay a lot of attention to them, and I'm always trying to do better than before
Yeah.
because, I mean, really, that's the whole reason we're in business, is to serve customers and give them what they want.
Yeah.
And some of it is constructive. Some of it is not. One of the questions I always ask is, if you ran my company, what would you do with this? And some of the answers people put, I'm always like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. But also, like, we have 5-star rating, and we rate, like, out of 5 stars, how likely you recommend to a friend, how much value for money are you getting. And there's always, like, on the recent one, we had someone rate it 3 out of 5 stars. So not terrible, but anything less than 5, and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
What went wrong here? Like, oh my gosh, is everything going to fall apart? Like, how is this happening? So 3 out of 5. And then I read the comments, and so my program is $500 a month. So it's like not a cheap program, but it's not super high end. It's affordable. And she said, I implemented everything that you said. We did our first launch. We made $50,000, but I just don't think I see the value in it. So I'm not sure if we're going to continue. I thought about that for way too long.
Yeah.
Going, what? Did I set an expectation wrong? Do they have the expectation? Is this on my end? Is this on their end? Like, how is that not right? Have I not communicated effectively? I combed through my sales page to make sure I wasn't giving anyone a bum steer, like all of these different things. Or if anyone ever says anything negative, I will think about that for way too long. And I know that that is a problem.
Yeah.
How I get over that is I either, like, rationalize it, like, go, is this true? Or, you just mentioned highlight reels before, so I'll be real. Or I drink gin and I go, it's okay, Tina. We still love you. You're okay.
Oh, you are too cool. You are too cool. So, for you all joining us live here or watching the recording on socials, I want to get into the mistake and an interesting tool and tactic that's going to make your content life easier. And then we're going to ask Tina about the tips and tricks she has for podcasters, which you don't want to miss. But before that, let's talk about publishing large MP3 files. And I'm going to say this because as business owners, when you get into podcasting, you don't really know what the size of the MP3 should be. And sometimes we produce an MP3 file that has stereo and it's in like 2 years, and a podcast usually probably just needs to be a mono file. So if you're creating a file that's too large, it takes a long time for someone to download it, especially if they're not in a first world. And you want to know, and you should know, that a lot of audiences are in other parts of the world that are not in the United States, in Australia, Canada, UK, so on. And internet speeds are a real thing in some parts. So thinking about your audience and making it easy. So even if you do have a good internet speed, making sure that your file is easy to access is a thing, because you've seen this happen on a website. You've kind of gone to a website sometimes and it takes ages for the images to load. That's the same thing happening if you're putting out an MP3 file that's too large, okay? By the way, this is mistake number 70. There's a whole bunch of mistakes that business owners make when they, make a podcast. And if you go to mistakes.wearepodcast.com, you can download that whole list. And a lot of the times you can just read the mistake and not make it again because you just didn't know that you were making it. So go get that. And I want to give you this really, really cool tool that I came across, which is marketingexamples.com. And I'm going to find out whether Tina knows about this, but marketingexamples.com gives you a whole bunch of really, really cool case studies that you can use, you can copy, you can mimic, you can personalize for you and your business. And sometimes when you think, oh, I wonder what content we should be creating. I wonder what podcast content should I be creating. I wonder what guests should I interview on my show and on what. Well, here is your answer. Just go here, spend anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, and you'll get enough ideas on what content to create for your business, but also some really, really cool things like the step by step guide to creating a landing page that converts. Everyone needs that. All right, enough about me. Back to Tina. Tina, did you hear about that marketingexamples.com before?
No, I have a pen in my hand because I just wrote it down. You went back to camera on me. I'm like, still writing.
Sorry, I mean this. I'm learning how to switch cameras, so I apologize if I put you in
I
a
love it.
position.
I want the whole tech setup that you've got going on here. I'm gonna get it.
I found that super fascinating because marketingexamples.com really helps, get things that actually work. And a
Yeah.
case, so it's like case studies that actually work as opposed to a friend saying, "Hey, dude, have you tried the Facebook ad with the image like that?" And you're like, "Have you done that before? Do you know any results that you've gotten from it?"
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what I just shared?
Well, I mean, I think for so many people, it's the inspiration of stuff too. Like looking at that and going, if you're stuck for ideas and you don't know what to write for different things, like it can just even scrolling through that without even opening anything, I'm like, oh, I could do an episode on that. I could do an idea on that. And sometimes it's just those sparks of inspiration that we need. So yeah, it's all helpful.
So cool, so cool. All right, let's wind up on this. You've been doing podcasting for a while. You've been doing businessing for way too long. I feel like a youngin in this whole situation. But let's ask you this: what kind of tips and tricks you have for podcasters that are probably new, or even experienced ones like myself that maybe have no idea on certain things that you might be doing well that I might not doing? So, what tips and ideas do you have for podcasters that are in business?
Yeah, so I would say at the beginning, go simple because really it's just getting into the groove of things. I cannot tell you how quickly a week comes around. Um, so I have my whole year all planned out. I use Monday.com as a project management, same as like ClickUp, Asana, all the same thing. But I map out and have on our board everything already scheduled. So I'll sit down and go through things like Ronsley just showed there and go through. I ask on Instagram really simply, like, what do you want to learn from me? And people will tell you, your audience will tell you what they're looking for. I also have a bank so that if anybody like sends me a DM on Instagram with a message, or if they're in my program and they ask me a question and I'm like, this would be a really good episode, I add it to that idea bank. So when it comes time to record, I'm not thinking, what am I going to do this week? So that's my first one, is make content easier. Keep it really, really organized. So I have like what its release date is, whether it's clean or explicit, all of the notes, it's Canva tile for the cover, like everything is on that on the board. And although I do change, I try and batch, and that's probably tip number three is batch, because it is much easier than just going once a week, is to get kind of in that zone. So batching it out, but I usually try and go only 3 to 4 weeks in advance, because what I find is even though I've got the plan, something will come up that inevitably changes. So I'll get someone who's super awesome, want to be interviewed, and I'm like, yes, that I don't want to be too far in advance and
Yeah,
not be able to respond to the moment as
sure.
well. So it's a combination of being organized and flexible, because I've been in this stage where, like, I got COVID last month and I was woman down. I was normally, I can like psych myself out of anything. I've ran 4 days of training with acute tonsillitis. Like I can, psychologists would say this is really bad, but I can push through anything. I could not push through COVID. I was like, ugh, out. Um, and so I was so thankful that I had some podcast episodes up my sleeve. So I always like, for unforeseen circumstances, to have a little bit in advance. It'd make me really stressed out to not, and do that. And then probably what else would make it, have a call to action,
Yeah.
not in every episode, but always try and get people on your email list. Because I look at the amount of downloads that people have, and sometimes they're way higher than their actual email list. So it's, how do you get them across to be able to do that? And then my final one would be, do it in a way that works for you, that you can maintain. So an example of that is, I love how Ronsley's doing this right now, and everything in me wants to do it to like maximize the exposure of content in going live, in being able to chop up the video. Like it is the bee's knees of how it should be done. However, when I podcast, if I'm solo, I don't like getting like dressed. I
Yeah.
like to do it in my snuggie or
Yeah.
sitting on the couch and a lot of people would say, sure, film that like you're in your natural state, like film that anyway. But I seem to be a little bit different when there's a camera on me than when I'm just audio. I'm always a lot more comfortable when
Yeah.
I'm just audio. So even though I know it's not as good for content repurposing, when I'm on solo episodes, I go just audio. And that is my point, is go what works for you at the stage that you're at.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my tips.
Yeah. Amazing. Um, Finally, before we wrap this up, where can people find you, and what are you excited for coming up?
Phew. I should be so easy to find. tinatower.com, or just search Tina Tower on any of the social media and say hello to me. And I mean, I'm excited for life, honestly.
Mm, yeah.
But in a couple of weeks, I leave for another 5 week trip and I go on a lover's holiday with my husband to Fiji for a week. And then we fly straight from there to Hawaii. And I got a house in Hawaii for a month, which is like the bougiest house I've ever seen and the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life in booking the house for a month. And I have friends coming for a week. And then I run launch from the house. And then I have clients coming for a retreat. And then I have my family coming for a week. And it's just like, when they say when you're younger, like dream that your ideal life, to me it's like an I did it moment, a moment of going, oh my gosh, like the most outrageous thing that I could imagine. I went and did that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's like the
yeah,
ideal month. Like you're spending time with the most amazing, like
all the
the
things,
people that
right?
you write. It's just,
Yeah.
I've got goosebumps listening to that. Like, you've got to know that that is amazing. I'm so happy that you've built the life that you're living, the life that you love. And
Yeah.
I love what I love about this whole thing is the decisions that you've made to get you to this point, and the bravery and the courage that you've shown through that whole journey. So thank you
Yeah.
for being my friend. Thank you
Thank you.
for
Oh, it's like the
helping
Golden
me.
Girls. Thank you for being my friend. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, find the edited version of this on shouldistartapodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Find Tina, get her empire builder. She's got some really, really cool ideas and tactics on online products, on launches that you really should check out. Marketing, it's just amazing. Tina, thank you. Much
Thank
love.
you, Ronzi. I love you.